Okay, hey everybody. So we are back with another What Sold video, and it's just kind of an average week for us, average to low sales type of week. We it's kind of normal in the fact that half of our sales came from eBay and the other half were made up of a few sales on each of the different platforms. That's kind of a norm for us. Anyway, we're starting with a Patagonia. This was like the third week in October. And we're going to start with a Patagonia sweater dress. I'm not sure that I would pick one of these up again. I don't know why. It did not sell well. And I think it's just something that it is a little dated. It was fall. The FA13 in the title means it was fall 2013. So it was a little bit older. Just maybe not a specific style that people were looking for. So we were finally just happy to let it go for, I think, like 1874 or something like that is what we ended up selling it for. But it had been listed for a while, so we were happy to see that one move on to a new home. And as usual, I'm scrolling down to find my solds on eBay for the actual selling prices because Lord forbid that I'm ever ready when I actually start the video because I don't think ahead. Okay, so just grabbing you the price real quick, $18.74. I was correct. Next up is a really good sale for this Pendleton board shirt, sold for $60. Let's take a look at the label. So there are guides online for the Pendleton labels where you can figure out the date based on like whether it says pure virgin wool, whether it has the wool mark symbol, the location of certain pieces of the label, and it will help you figure out how old your shirt is. One thing we had added, we were kind of surprised it didn't sell quicker or get a lot of interest. And so I had double checked prices that, people's prices our price was in line with other people's prices. And I can't remember if we did at one point drop it a little bit. But I liked the color of it. We did see that some of the shirts that were selling for a higher price were what's called a shadow plaid. So this is kind of more of a straightforward plaid. The shadow plaids they have kind of a blurry look to them, and those seem to be more popular with the Pendleton. We did add the fact that it was a loop collar when we edited it. It's mentioned in a lot of other people's listings, and it's a way to show that it's from a certain era, the 60s. So there's a button up in this part of the collar, and then there's this little loop right here. And so if your vintage shirts have that, it's a good thing to mention. Next up is a belt. This is by Brighton. I found it still actually available on a website, like for a store near us, like they still have it for sale currently. Onyx, I believe, I don't know if there's women's onyx things, but for the most part, the onyx pieces that I have found have been men's. And so I had picked this up because it had the cool coins on it, and from looking at the listings of the the current ones that are still on websites, we just kind of used their title for the Zambia bead, their wooden beads, and then the coins on there. So we just took a $16 offer. Like I said, it's still one of those things that's available for purchase new, and this was pre-owned. This was just a Mr. Pish Posh item. I think he got it from a friend or something. But anyway, it's the nozzle, is the word I was trying to think of. The nozzle to a jerry can, basically, is what that is. And anyway, he sold that for $24.99. And then Peter Millar, this sold for $24.99 as well. Let me double check something. Yep, full asking price on that one. Just gingham. You know, it was a keyword, gingham, check. It did have a logo for probably a golf course or a certain place. So $24.99. This was a new with tags beanie. So beanies, kind of a good time of year to list and sell beanies if you find some good ones. This one did sell for $29.99. It was new with tags. Pistol is one of those brands. Sorry, we did have a 10% discount on that one with the coupon. It's one of those, it's a good bread and butter brand for us. Like, we don't pick everything up that we find that's by Pistol, but there's a certain ones that are a little bit more interesting, and of course this one was new with tags, and I'm sure we just picked it up at our clearance store. We do a little bit of Duluth Trading Company clothing. It tends to get marked up pretty high in the thrifts around here. So this jacket, though, a lot of the things that are made with this, they call it the fire hose, flex fire hose material. And this was a nice, you know, kind of blazer, I guess called a presentation jacket. It was extra large, tall, and we sold that one for $49.99 with the coupon that we had running, the 10% coupon as well. So take $5 off of that. And then this polo by Ralph Lauren, it's a bow tie, and I've done pretty well with certain brands of bow ties. Anything Polo Ralph Lauren tie related is something I'm most likely going to pick up, you know, even if it's just ends up being just a basic bread and butter kind of sale and nothing crazy out of the park. But this one did sell for the $29.99 with the coupon, you know, 10% off of that, $3 off. And it was made in Italy, you know, just a basic kind of little paisley, little drop pattern there. But it, you know, it only probably took a few weeks for that one to sell. Sold some flatware, the Yamazaki Old Denmark. Is that when on a Flatware Friday, we talked about that brand Yamazaki, and I talked about this flatware that I found, or it could have been in a Flatware Friday. I remember talking about it, maybe just in one of the ones where I showed the stuff I found. But anyway, those sold for $48.99 minus the 10% coupon. This was just a kind of a basic hat, bear archery. Archery being one of the themes that we kind of come across fairly often here, and seems to sell for kind of basic bread and butter prices. $14.99, I think, is just what we had it listed at, and you know, nothing crazy. We didn't start that with like a $24.99 or anything, and sold it with our coupon. Another hat, a much better hat, was this Arc'teryx hat. This was something a friend had given to us. They had bought it and didn't care for it, how it fit or anything, and so we ended up selling it for $35. It's a wool silk blend hat. Then we've sold these types of vintage eyeglasses, gold-filled type of glasses. You've probably seen them in my What Solds, you know. And we kind of had just been going through, I don't know how in the world we ended up with so many of them. There's certain ones I specifically remember buying, but then others I don't remember. And we end up, I think Mr. Pitch Posh got tired of looking at them because he decided to lot them up and sold them for $69.99 just with, you know, with the coupon on top of that. But a lot of them we've sold kind of in that same $20, $30 range as well, if not a little bit higher. Here's another hat that we sold. I think the coupon was still running. I'm trying to think. Yeah, the coupon probably runs through the end of the eBay listings that I have here. So a lot of people were using the coupon instead of kind of going back and forth with offers. So that was kind of nice. Don't ask me what this hat is about. AFRC, let's just say that. And somebody knew what they wanted, and so they bought it. This one, I think we had it listed for a little bit longer with a higher price because it was new with tags, and it was vintage camo, but didn't really have any takers, and so then we finally got a $37.49 offer, which we accepted. Or we sent that out, and that's got accepted. Here's the rest of the jerry can, the gas can, and both of them, the brand was Blitz. So that sold for $42.49. And then here's a Western shirt that sold for a fairly decent price of $29.74. And it's a brand that, I don't say, hey, you should pick up Plains Western wear, because a lot of their regular basic Western shirts, they're going to be like between $15 and $20. Like, it's not like the highest end Western kind of brand to pick up. This one was vintage, and it did have this nice, that's kind of a key with Western shirts, is the more features that it has, or if it's got embroidery or things like that. This one had just kind of like this detail piping. And so that one did not too bad with the $29.74, almost $30. Now, I meant to look up how to pronounce this brand ahead of time. I see it. It's like an REI brand. I don't know if it's just Kui or Kiwi or QEU. Anyway, this was at my clearance store one day at my bins, and it's just a nice solid mug, and it was newer, and I was like, you know what? It's sometimes when clothing companies give away things like this, or maybe don't give it away, but sell it, like maybe they sold these at REI as well. I'm not quite sure where you would get, merchandise like this, but I think I even checked because I don't usually check much when I'm at the store, at the clearance store, because I'm paying so little. But I think I did for that, and there were comps like in that $25 range. And so we listed that, and it sold probably the next day for $24.99 minus our coupon. So we were good with that. And ta-da, here is our good sale of the week. Our top sale of the week was this Filson duffel bag. Now, I had mentioned the duffel bag in an earlier video because when I found it at the yard sale, it also had locks on it. And as Mr. Pish Posh did his research, he saw in the selling prices that the prices for the bags without the locks and bags with the locks were pretty much the same. And so he decided to take the locks off and list them separately. So I've already shown our sale. It was on Poshmark. Someone bought the Filson locks. We had 4 locks and 3 keys. And those sold for like $120. So we can add that to this. The bag, I think, was $15 at the yard sale. And it was so funny because we were at the yard sale together, and this bag was kind of crumpled. It was crushed down on the ground, and I think it had some other bags in it or something. And so I'm kind of just looking at it because it's got this like, kind of outdoor Eddie Bauer, Filson, whatever kind of look to it. And so I'm like looking all over for a tag, and I see the locks, and the locks say Filson, and I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean the bag is Filson. So Mr. Pish Posh had wandered over, and I was like, look at the locks, And he's like, oh yeah. And he like opens the bag and he goes right to the tag, and it, right here, genuine Filson, right? So it is a Seattle company. We do find it. I actually have found more in Montana than I ever found when we lived near Seattle. But nice. This is a fairly good size bag. And the defect on it was this red mark on the top, maybe like a Sharpie or something like that. And I don't know that we tried really hard to get it out. We didn't want to make it worse. And so we decided to sell it as is. So we did have the price higher, I think just a little bit. And then we did relist it, drop the price a little bit. We kept getting like $200 offers. And we were like, I don't know that red mark is going to be such a deal breaker. or if somebody wants to spend some time trying to get the mark out, they could, But any case, we finally got a $400 offer, $400.18. And at that point, we were already like in the profit because of our selling of the locks. And the buyer said, he was going to have to buy a shoulder strap for it. It's such a large kind of bag that he was like, a shoulder strap is kind of necessary for it. And so we were okay with it for just, totally okay with it for selling that bag for $400. But in better condition, I think the $600-700 mark is where a lot of these bags have sold for in the past. So Filson is a brand. Definitely keep your eye open for that. Moving over to Poshmark, just a few sales over on Posh. Sold this vintage deck of cards. These came from the bins as well, and they ended up selling for $20 on Posh. I thought maybe they'd go a little bit higher. They were sealed. I just thought, I didn't know how, if somebody would be into this Nebraska football Harry Husker type thing. And so nothing I know about, but they were sealed. And so when we got the $20 offer on Posh, I said, let's move them on. Here is a Fjällräven beanie that we sold. Again, it's one of my favorite brands to find. I get so excited when I find the little fox logo. Let me see if I can get a better picture of it. You can see the little fox. So sometimes they like to put it on the sleeves. So sometimes I've spotted it on like the sleeves of shirts as I kind of am scrolling through. This came from the bins as well. And then it had the Fjällräven tag on the inside. That's what you're looking for. $22 for this beanie. Then a pair of eyeglasses, vintage eyeglasses. We kind of try to emphasize the fact that even if the glass has any kind of prescription, that we're selling it for the frames only, because you can't sell anything prescription on eBay. So if you just say that you're selling it as frames only, they're gonna put their own prescription in the glasses as well. And then the last thing on Posh for that week were these BIA cordon bleu au gratin little dishes. And I had picked them up one time, and it was probably at the bins as well, because they were new. And that's one of the only reasons I picked them up. But they sold for $25 on Posh, which is an easy, throw them in a priority box and we're good to go. Over on Depop, we had the same amount of sales on Depop as we did on Poshmark, but this hat, we got kind of a lower offer. I want to say it was even half price of this, and normally we wouldn't let it go for that much, but as noted, if you can see the crease right here in the brim, and we went ahead and listed it anyway because it was such kind of a cool look to it. But the brim was kind of broken. The cardboard inside had like that crack in it, so it did make a crease right there. So, someone was still willing to use it. Then this belt sold for, I believe, $18. It was pretty distressed, and it might have had a name, like a maker on it originally, but you couldn't read it anymore. And then a lot of the conchos there were tarnished and everything. So we let that one go for about $18, but that one went pretty quickly. Western style with the big conchos can be good sellers. And then these sold for, I think, about $35, $38, somewhere in there. They were not exactly what I expected to sell on Depop, but they're these loafers, men's loafers, size 12, made in Italy, and sold for $35. And then I sold a necktie. This one I think sold for $17, but I was so glad to see this go. It was probably the necktie I've had listed the longest. And I just grabbed it because it was new with tags. Vicky Davis, her shirts actually can sell for pretty good money. And she's kind of known for those novelty theme typed items, not just shirts, but like in neckties as well. And it was new with tags. It had a little tie tack that was a cat. And so it was a computer and all this kind of stuff. So again, it was Depop it finally ended up selling on, which I thought was awesome. And then over on for Arabia, Finland, anemone bowls. I think we had more of these in the past, and Mr. Pishposh had broken up into a couple different listings, and so these sold for $39.99. And then this hat, there's a crazy story with this hat. It got delivered, and the buyer said, hey, you know, it got creased, and the box kind of got crushed in shipping, and blah, blah, blah. So we asked for pictures, because returns on Etsy are so different than eBay. Etsy, what we figured out, because over the years we've typically not had a lot of returns on Etsy. Etsy pretty much wants you to kind of work things out with the buyer, and then they kind of will, you know, go from there. Like, so he like sent us a picture, or he like told us about the damage to the box. We said, could you send us a picture, like in case, you know, we're gonna do anything with insurance. And he sends us the picture, and it was so weird because the way the box was crushed on one side was like, it didn't match the way the hat would have been crushed. Mr. Pishposh gets very suspicious of certain things, but anyway. And so then it was like, so then what happens is he's not even allowed to open a return on Etsy for like 2 days after delivery. So we told him, yeah, we'll take it back, because we take returns on pretty much everything. And so, you know, it didn't look like it was unwearable. We were just like, you know, I think the guy just didn't like it, right? And he was trying to figure out a way to like make it so that we definitely would take it back or get a refund or something. And so we ended up, you know, we're like, yeah, in a couple days, open the return. You have to wait till Etsy lets you, but open the return. Well, he opens the return, instead of opening one as damaged, like in shipping or something like that, or I don't know. It was weird. It was like he didn't like it. He said it at first, it didn't fit, like it was too big, but then also that it was like his story kept changing, right? And so when he finally like opened the return, he totally gave the wrong reason. And so we had wanted him to pick the reason that it was damaged in shipping, because Etsy does have like a seller buyer protection. You know, I think you can do 1 item or 2 items a year, or maybe 1 item a year. And, you know, we didn't want it to be like it was our fault. So he like picked the reason that the item didn't match the description. That's what it was. And we were like, oh, come on. And so we kind of had to like go into like our side of it, you know, and say, look, here's the pictures that he provided for us. And every time he like sent new pictures to us, like the hat was even more crumpled and damaged. Like he was trying to make it look as worse as possible. It was so crazy. So anyway, all that to say, by the end of the day, Etsy refunded him. They let us keep our money. And then I think that's our kind of seller protection for the year. But anyway, it was nuts. I'm like, you know, if the guy just didn't like it, all he had to do was say, hey, I got the hat. I really didn't like it. Can I return it? And we would have been like, yeah, go ahead. And then, you know, so it's all fine. I just think it's funny the lengths that people go to get what they want, right? Okay. Anyway, over to the pattern shop. These next 2 patterns were purchased by the same buyer, and they were bought pretty much a day after we got them listed. This Vogue kind of a swing jacket, swing coat for $18 from, I think, like the 70s, and a similar style coat poncho type thing, also by Vogue, same size, for $22. Yeah, like I said, they went to the same buyer. Then this Simplicity little dog coat clothing pattern for $10. And then a costume pattern as well for $10 by Simplicity. American Duchess is the line on that one. Very cosplay. And then this Vogue from the 2000s, or, oh, I guess it says, no. I have that messed up. I have to, the whole thing that I did with my son where he was doing drafts, we both were missing the fact that this part, vintage from the 90s, like got filled in, like got carried from listing to listing. And I finally realized that that was happening. And so I've changed some, but not all of them. But anyway, it's all good. I think this was from the 2000s based on the look of it, and it sold for $12. And then just one little sale over on Ruby Lane. This was a Coro brooch, very unusual with the black coloring, the really dark stones, the dark blue stone. Anyway, sold for $32. I had gotten this in a jewelry lot I bought from like another reseller or, someone thinning out their collection in any case. So, not too many sales on Ruby Lane. I just wanted to mention Ruby Lane. I was thinking about it as I was doing this, and I feel like every week as I do the what solds, I look back about what I was able to get listed and what I was able to do, and I was like, yeah, I gotta figure something else out. I feel like I'm starting to feel like I'm getting myself spread too thin. I always do this. Anyway, if you guys have any comments down below, how to be more productive, right? So maybe we need to like have a discussion or a video about being productive. And then maybe I don't know, like, when I have too many shops, like every week I think, I want to get all this like vintage listed on Ruby Lane. And one thing after another, like I've got videos to make, or I'm like, I should get this eBay stuff listed first or whatever. Mr. Pish Posh has been busy with some other projects, construction related. So, he hasn't been churning the listings like he usually does. And so, you can kind of see our sales, even in the last couple of weeks, have been kind of slower. But we have so much stuff to get listed, and I don't know. I loved having my son as just our little update on that challenge that I had with him. Having him do those drafts for the sewing patterns, like that helped immensely. I would never have gotten the patterns listed that I did. Now, we didn't quite make it to 200 for the month of October, to 200 new listings added. He got to like 174 in his drafting, I would say, somewhere in there, and 175. I mean, he might even have been a little closer. And then I still have a little stock from the drafts that he did that I am working on catching up to him as far as getting them live onto the site. So that helped immensely. Like I said, I would have listed maybe 5 patterns the whole month if I had to just kind of start from scratch and do it. But because I had the challenge, which was helpful, that kind of kept things going. So I don't know. I mean, we live busy lives. We have, we have family, we have volunteer work, we've got different things that, besides reselling going on that we have to take care of every week, and not always a full amount of energy. So I have to give this some thought of how to get myself to be a little bit more productive and get more things on there live. Okay? Like live and out there for people to buy, because it just needs to be done. I need help. Okay, I will stop rambling and let you guys go, but I hope you guys had a great week reselling, and as always, leave me a comment down below as far as what things you have been selling lately, or have things picked up for you or slowed down or whatever, or any great scores that you've had. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will talk to you guys later on next week.